Hi everyone. Sorry I can't be there in person, but I look forward to our live Q&A time where I can answer any questions you might have. On October 17, 1945, a large crowd gathered at the Plaza de Mayo in downtown Buenos Aires to demand the release of Juan Perón, a charismatic colonel held prisoner by his own military junta. Perón's meteoric rise troubled other officers, many of whom held their own political ambitions. Backed by middle and upper-class citizens opposed to Peronism, they forced him to resign and then detained him on October 12th. His arrest galvanized the labor sector. Union groups organized the rally 5 days later, which attracted hundreds of thousands of Peronist supporters, mostly working-class citizens, and helped secure his release from prison. October 17 altered the political landscape. In his campaign for president, Perón advocated for the rights of workers, criticized the Argentine oligarchy, and targeted foreign influences such as communists and Yankee imperialists. Working-class citizens found Perón's platform of social justice attractive. On the other hand, socialists and communists were troubled by his movement's inroads among laborers, while conservatives feared that he would move Argentina towards a totalitarian state. In this presentation, I will examine how Juan Perón and his partner Eva used the state apparatus to fashion their image as patrons of sport once they took power in 1946. In their quest to develop a new Argentina, they organized sports events and programs that could present a modern and progressive image of the country. But, as is the case with so many things associated with Peronism, complications and contradictions abound at every turn. Sports played a crucial role in the making of the new Argentina. A tenet of Peronism was that plebeian sectors of society should enjoy the same rights and economic benefits as middle and upper-class Argentines. Perón extolled the integrity of los descamisados, the shirtless, or manual laborers, as the authentic spirit of the nation. To him, social justice meant greater access to public spaces and entertainment for all. According to Carlos Aloe, editor of the sports magazine Mundo Deportivo, and a close friend of the First Lady, quote, "The rich have their weekends, their excursions, or their sports, according to their means. By contrast, the masses, the people, the worker, or the employee do not possess such means," end quote. The Department of Labor organized the Eva Perón National Tournament for Workers, with events in basketball, marksmanship, swimming, track and field, tennis, and other sports normally out of reach for working-class men and women. Another department, the Ministry for Technical Matters, asked individuals to propose sports-related projects to the state. In doing so, the ministry reinforced the image of the president as a benefactor of sports and leisure. Both initiatives echoed one of Perón's refrains. Rather than have 10 athletes perform for 300,000 spectators, it would be better to have 300,000 athletes perform for 10 spectators. Sports was also central to the cult of personality associated with Perón. As historians Rwany Rein and Mariano Ben Plotkin show, state propaganda projected an image of the president as an athlete and fan. Photographs show him enjoying multiple sports, including marksmanship, billiards, boxing, alpine skiing, fencing, and motorcycle racing. Perón enjoyed posing with celebrity athletes like champion driver Juan Manuel Fangio and pugilist José María Gatica, who was an avid Peronist supporter. The portrayal of the president as the first sportsman appeared in popular magazines, official letters, and memorandums from government offices. Clubs like River Plate and Boca Juniors bestowed honorary titles for Perón, such as Presidente del Fútbol Argentino or Primer Hincha. The Argentine Football Association, or AFA, under state intervention, used similar language in its official press releases. Some of the president's favorite moments involved the opening of sports venues financed or facilitated by the state. No project garnered more attention than the construction of Racing Club's new stadium. Perón's finance minister, Ramón Cerejo, as well as Aloe, were both club members. They used their political clout to lobby federal and city leaders for the 3 million pesos needed to finalize the stadium's construction. The president enjoyed a VIP tour 2 days before the opening match. In September of 1951, Racing opened up the impressive 100,000-seat Presidente Juan Domingo Perón Stadium. The publicity helped cement Perón's reputation not just as Argentina's first sportsman, but as patron of sports. The cult of personality extended to the state initiatives geared towards children and women. Once in power, the Peronist state began organizing outreach events for children. The most famous was the Evita Youth Soccer Tournament. Launched in December of 1948, it attracted tens of thousands of boys across the country and offered a means for the state to register children for free health screenings, a service normally out of reach for the poorest families. Images of boys smiling, waving, sporting leather soccer balls, wearing new uniforms conveyed a healthy and positive experience. Its popularity encouraged the president to sponsor his own tournament for teenagers, El Torneo Juvenil Juan Perón, which included athletic events for both boys and girls. The first couple often performed ceremonial kickoffs at these events. Players at the Evita Youth Tournament were required to wear the official badge, featuring a silhouette of Evita, and sing the official anthem, which honored the first couple's commitment to sports. While school textbooks celebrated the Evita Youth football tournaments as a gift from the state. According to the Eva Perón Foundation, cultural centers and athletic facilities for children helped transform Argentina into a children's paradise. The Peronist state also staged tournaments for women. Female athletes were well known before Perón's rise to power. They regularly appeared on the cover of El Gráfico, the nation's best-selling sports weekly, and in articles that highlighted their sporting achievements. Track runners Naomi Simoneto and Oldemia Bargiela, for example, were seen as models of tenacity, discipline, and hard work, and representatives of Argentine modernity. The Peronist state, however, was the first to invest in women's sports. New initiatives fell under the control of the Ateneo Deportivo Femenino Evita, a cultural association for women's sports. Established in 1951, it organized competitions for women and girls in popular sports like basketball, but also in chess, lawn bowling, volleyball, fencing, billiards, and even motorcycle racing. Despite its progressive view of female athletics, the Peronist state retained a generally conservative view of gender roles in society. Eva's position in the government, as First Lady and the head of her own foundation, certainly challenged the misogynistic culture in Argentine politics, yet her public comments fell short of embracing feminism. She often said that a woman's place was at home, and that women's political activism should be directed towards voting and championing the Peronist movement. Female athletes that participated in state-sponsored tournaments were typically teenagers or young adults. The expectation was that by their early 20s, women would begin transitioning to work as a homemaker and/or employee. After Evita's death in 1952 due to cervical cancer, references to her took on a quasi-religious tone. Her youth soccer tournament, for example, was regarded as a, quote, magnificent conception. And Perón reminded young athletes that Eva's spirit remained and protected children with her immense love. For Perón, hosting the Olympic Games or the World Cup would cement his legacy. The international visibility afforded by staging the inaugural 1950 FIBA Men's World Basketball Championship and the 1951 Pan American Games would hopefully showcase a modern and financially stable Argentina. Sports federations were tasked with preparing men and women to compete and succeed across multiple sports. The government spared no expense. It built a variety of new sports venues, such as the October 17 Velodrome for track cycling. And the centerpiece for the Pan Am Games would be the Presidente Perón Stadium, designed to host football and track and field events. The international sports tournaments mattered domestically as well. Citing the aim for greater social justice, state officials ensured that both events would be accessible to the nation's most humble citizens. By, at times, giving away free tickets, a decision that bothered anti-Peronists who resented the invasion of working-class spectators in sports venues beyond football stadiums. At the FIBA tournament, Argentina's team defeated the United States in the championship game. This surprising triumph became a great source of pride, especially for Perón, who was an avid basketball player in his youth. 3 years later, Argentina sent the women's national team to the inaugural FIBA Women's Basketball Championship in Chile. Pan Am medal winners Ana Maria Schultz in swimming, Ingeborg Melo in field events, and the head of the Ateneo, Elsa Irigoyen, in fencing, appeared in various state-run magazines. By drawing attention to their successes, state officials hoped that IOC and FIFA officials would take note of Argentina's sporting pedigree. Football's immense popularity generated a wave of excitement around a pair of high-profile matches against England in 1953. 2 years earlier, the men's team traveled to London to play England at Wembley Stadium. Billed as a game between students and teachers, Argentina performed well but lost the Three Lions 2-1. When the players came back home, they were welcomed as conquering heroes. The English team returned the favor in 1953, agreeing to play in 2 friendlies. Perón, state officials, and executives at AFA rolled out the red carpet. They arranged for the visitors to stay at the exclusive Hindu club and welcomed them with full honors. AFA released an official game day brochure that included a message from Perón where he describes sports as the ideal means for cementing friendships between nations. In a similar nod to diplomacy, the English paid their respects to the recently deceased Eva by laying a wreath at her memorial. The political backdrop for these 2 matches was less cordial, though. Argentine resentments towards Great Britain date back to the 19th century, when much of the Southern Cone fell under the informal British Empire. Business deals that benefited British companies rankled many Argentines, which provided Perón a useful other to exploit in his populist brand of nationalism. A cartoon published in the popular magazine Caras y Caretas portrays this reversal of fortune. Whereas in the past, Argentina's best beef went to British capitalists, now, in 1953, Argentina held the upper hand. The cartoon juxtaposes British icon John Bull, the symbol of capitalist exploitation, to an invented character, Juan Pueblo, representative of the Argentine people and who, of course, looks like Perón. Peronist-era textbooks also aired grievances about the British seizure of the Malvinas Islands, or the Falkland Islands, with the common refrain, Las Malvinas son Argentinas. On the day of the first match at River Plate's Monumental Stadium, Perón greeted each member of the Three Lions in a show of goodwill. As always, the president was more than happy to be the master of ceremonies. He nervously watched the game unfold, but the score wasn't particularly close. Argentina won 3-0. The English FA prepared its best squad for the second game on May 17th, but it ended prematurely due to heavy rain. Local papers proclaimed the 2 matches as a moral victory, an example of the supremacy of football criollo versus English football. The Peronist decade ended with a coup in 1955. The military junta characterized its move as a needed one, labeling the Peronist state as corrupt, decadent, and fascist in nature. It proscribed anything to do with Peronism, which included state-sponsored athletic programs for women and children. Although club associations continued to fund programs for boys and girls, proscription dealt a devastating blow to Argentine sports as a whole. Government documents and sports publications reveal the ways in which Juan and Eva Perón fashioned themselves as patrons of sport. They provided greater access for working-class citizens, women, and children to participate and compete. They elevated female athletes to important positions in various programs, and they helped finance and support the construction of athletic facilities. Perón's legacy, though, would depend on others, namely the foreign officials from the IOC and FIFA. They would decide if Argentina would host the Olympics or the World Cup. The effort ultimately failed. The 55 coup raised concerns about Argentina's political and economic stability. Despite these failures, Perón's sporting legacy persists in smaller ways. As historians continue to delve into the cultural history of Peronism, it is clear that the decade of 1946 to 1955 hardened classist narratives in sports between the fans and the corrupt officials in charge of football and other popular sports. Nostalgic sentiment surrounds many clubs tied to Peronism. But perhaps the greatest legacy is that the idea of sports as social justice continues to resonate in Argentina. The right of all people to play sports or participate as spectators, remains an ideal that continues to shape the civic identity and mission of athletic clubs around the country.